Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into some incredibly profound spiritual insights. These were actually compiled by Mamir Ali Shah, who's a seeker generously sharing all this through the Inner Horizon podcast. So we'll be unpacking a study circle's reflections on the teachings of Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. It's really about weaving together the outer and inner meanings of our daily struggles. Let's just jump right in. To kick off our seeker's journey today, we need to ask ourselves a pretty intimate question. Who are we really performing for? It's the kind of question that just cuts right through the noise of our daily routines, you know? It really forces us to look at the audience of our own hearts and figure out our ultimate intentions. There's a really famous hadith that says, "The sense of shame is part of faith." Now, on the surface, that sounds like simple, maybe almost domestic advice, right? Like it's just about modest dress or restraining your speech or avoiding uncouth behavior. But Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani absolutely refuses to let us stay at that surface level. He actually gives this teaching a much, much heavier weight. The Shaykh hits the nail on the head when diagnosing our modern ailment. He defines true haya, or real modesty, as feeling a genuine sense of shame in relation to your Lord. And that's in both your private moments and your public life. Think about it. We've kind of learned to feel shame before the entirely wrong audience. We're constantly adjusting our faces for the camera, right? We're obsessively monitoring our reputations in front of total strangers on the internet. But we're entirely failing to adjust our hearts for Him. This brilliantly illustrates the disconnect. When we just manage the outer illusion without actually cultivating the inner reality, the Sheikh straight up calls it a crazy delusion, or just plain hypocrisy. True modesty towards people should naturally flow downstream from our genuine shame and surrender before the Creator. If the inner posture is right, the outer just naturally follows. If we genuinely fear how we are seen, with a capital S, we just stop worrying so much about how we're seen by everyone else. So how does this inner state of modesty connect to our daily lives? Well, it ties directly into our everyday anxieties about survival, finding provision, and, just paying the bills. Because when we surrender to creation instead of the Creator, it profoundly affects how we actually seek our livelihood. The Sheikh teaches that there are really only two legitimate doors for sustenance. The first door is kasb. That's doing the honest, halal work with rigorous discipline, raising your kids, paying your bills, putting in the sweat. The second door is tawakkul. This is the radical, absolute trust of the saints. They rely entirely on the Lord as the provider, trusting that the one who feeds the birds is going to feed them too. And hey, both of these doors are completely honorable. But here comes a pretty sobering reality check. Most of us actually fall into this flawed third door. We haven't really done the rigorous work of kesb, but we also definitely don't have the absolute trust of tawakkul. So instead, we're stuck in this totally draining in-between state. We end up begging sideways from creatures for what only the Creator can actually give us. We're constantly seeking validation from the side, and honestly, that just drains all the dignity right out of our lives. Okay, so the crucial takeaway here is that we absolutely must choose one of those legitimate doors. But let's be real. As we try to navigate honest work and true trust, we are inevitably going to face opposition. We hit roadblocks and we get sucked into the exhausting rat race of chasing the world. So what do we do? How do we hold our spiritual posture when that happens? The answer lies in this incredibly profound principle. Opposition is loud, sure, but it is ultimately powerless against what has been preordained. Think about it. Just like the brothers of Prophet Yusuf plotting against him, throwing him in a well only for him to be lifted up to a king's house. Or the plotters against Prophet Isa, who literally could not touch his ultimate trajectory. Opposition today gets to make a lot of noise, absolutely. But it doesn't get to dictate outcomes. It simply cannot undo what is built for you. And if you truly grasp that, you unlock this strange, kind of extraordinary logic of detachment. The world isn't actually something to be frantically chased after. If you practice real detachment, the world will actually approach you, like a maidservant saying, "I am here for you. Take what is yours." It offers up exactly what was always allotted to you anyway. You stop chasing and the world stops fleeing. It's a real game changer. So let's see how this all builds into our daily practice, specifically when it comes to our prayers. Because to maintain this level of detachment and trust, we need a daily anchor, right? We have to ask ourselves, is our prayer just a 5 times a day chore we have to get through? Or is it actually a doorway to something else entirely? This study circle reflected on this famous, mind-blowing story of Urwa ibn al-Zubayr. His leg actually had to be amputated due to gangrene. But get this, he asked the doctor to wait until he had embarked upon his ritual prayer. And when the blade finally cut his leg, he literally felt no pain. Why? Because his heart had fully left the cage of his body and entered the presence of his Lord. He stepped through that door of prayer into a place where a physical blade simply could not reach him. Now, let's be honest, most of our prayers don't look anything like that. They're usually interrupted by wandering thoughts or, our smartphones buzzing in our pockets. We're usually just standing there knocking at the door, whereas Urwa walked right through it. But the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. The faithful are simply the ones who keep turning up to knock. Even if your heart doesn't fully feel it today, the key is to just keep returning to that door. And returning to that door is so vital, especially when things get dark. During the study circle, a seeker asked this incredibly honest, vulnerable question. How do I know if I'm in despair, and how do I heal? Despair is so dangerous because it's basically a massive optical illusion. It completely tricks you into believing that absolutely nothing good is happening. It's essentially a failure to count our blessings. But the immediate cure provided by the teacher is just profound in its simplicity. It's istighfar, which is seeking forgiveness, and shukr, which is gratitude. When we acknowledge our burden and our own role in it through istighfar, it instantly lightens the load. And then, by actively counting our blessings through shukr, that literally shatters that optical illusion of despair right then and there. To keep that despair away entirely, the study circle essentially built a little medicine cabinet for the heart. The advice is to run these 5 threads daily. First, keep your niyyah, your intention, pure. Work for him, not out of revenge or greed. Second, practice sakhawat, or generosity. Third, maintain constant shukur, gratitude. Fourth, seek continuous istighfar, forgiveness. And fifth, read Durood Sharif, invoking blessings on the Prophet. And the beautiful part is, you shouldn't treat these like a to-do checklist. You really want to practice them as a way of breathing. As we start mastering these inner practices and running these 5 medicines daily, we arrive at what I honestly think is the most practical, transformative piece of advice from this entire compilation. We have to ask ourselves, when the really hard times do come, who actually controls the weight of our suffering? Well, it all comes down to this absolutely crucial 90-10 rule. Seriously, 90% of the weight of any circumstance is actually built by your own inner reaction. The situation itself, that's only 10%. The circumstance arrives, sure, we can't control that, but your reaction is what actively builds and assembles the suffering. Just think about this quote. If you don't react, both people and situations become powerless. I mean, wow. This isn't just some modern stoicism. This is deep, practical trust in the divine. If you just stop assembling the suffering yourself, and instead keep your inner room occupied with his name, the bad stuff simply has no vacancy to settle in. The situation literally loses its shape the moment you refuse to give it your reaction. Reflecting on Mir Ali Shah's truly beautiful compilation from the Inner Horizon podcast, my biggest personal takeaway is this. We are the ones who keep giving away our own power. We have to consciously choose our door of sustenance, faithfully run those 5 daily medicines, and constantly check our audience, remembering who we are truly performing for. It's a gentle but super precise wake-up call for all of us. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope you're leaving with a profound sense of peace and a completely renewed spiritual posture. I just want to leave you with this one final thought to carry with you. If your reaction dictates 90% of your reality, what will you choose to assemble today?